What is up with the squad? It's Session Favorite our team with Uncle Tendencies in the building for a full court conversation with the commish, Political Lil, Coach Coleman. What is the deal? Good evening. What's happening? Pull up. How are y'all? How y'all doing? First of all, how y'all doing before we even get started? Good evening. How y'all doing? Come on in, hit the like, hit the share. They both right there. I've been dying to have this conversation. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this special edition, this full court conversation of Assess Talk Sports BY's Poly Sports Tea Time conversation where we pour the tea of truth one cup at a time. And tonight we inviting y'all into what may be one of the most important conversations happening at the intersection of sports, politics, economics, labor, and civil rights. Our discussion tonight is the NAACP, Congressional Black Caucus and NIL Athletes Dilemma, Political Activism, Voting Rights, Boycotts, SCORE Act. Can political activism and economic self-determination coexist in the NIL era? And for me, more importantly, I need to understand why Black athletes keep getting the bill for a broken system. They keep wanting us to foot the bill for a broken system. For generations, Black athletes have occupied a unique position in America. Labor helped build billion-dollar sports industries. Visibility shaped culture. Their voices often became symbols of larger social movements, but something's changed, right? Today's athletes are no longer simply competitors on the field or court. Many are now entrepreneurs, content creators, business owners, brand ambassadors, family providers, economic engines before even becoming pro athletes, right? And that reality creates new questions. We got battles over voting rights, redistricting, representation, political power, intensify across parts of this country. Organizations are asking whether athletics should once again become a tool of political leverage. So we got some people arguing in this conversation about the boycott. If institutions profit from Black athletic labor, institutions should not remain neutral during civil rights struggles. So others say, should young athletes, many only now gaining financial opportunity through NIL, be expected to absorb the economic cost of political protests? And so this is not about telling you what to think. This is not about anything else but asking difficult questions about examining power, economics, responsibility. And so we want y'all voices in this conversation. And we expanded the panel to include the commish and Coach Coleman. Political Lil, my co-host, political analyst, will help us navigate the complex intersection of athlete labor and legislation, voting rights, economics, and the rapidly changing business of sports. Is it fair or is it foul to ask NIL athletes to become political actors in America's newest civil rights battle? So welcome everybody to the panel. Thank y'all. Welcome everybody in the chat. Grab your tea, your coffee, Coca-Cola, whatever you drink. Join the conversation. Let's get into it. How everybody doing?
Wonderful Wednesday. Hello to everyone. Political
doing well. I'm doing well.
Commish. Good to see you. I can't wait to. We'll talk about that later. Look forward to hopefully doing something in the future.
I'm living my best life.
I knew I was gonna get a song. Yo, never repeat that. Let's go.
Back and forth with it, huh?
I ain't going back and forth with you.
I ain't going about living my best life.
My best life.
Yes. In general, where this conversation came from, I started seeing the and in all fairness, I hadn't been paying attention. So I saw this SEC boycott message on Instagram. No kidding. Immediately I hit up the commission like, commission, what do you think about this? Commission's like, I've been kind of seeing it. I'm like, yeah, I feel like it's a little bit different. I had seen it before. It's something that people have been going back and forth on, but it really seemed like something that was really picking up speed around here, and really getting some traction. And then from there, I kind of had a conversation with Political Lil, which resulted in our recorded show and in the town hall. But wanted to be able to expand the conversation to include this panel of what I'm calling my experts, my expert panel. to talk about this. So I want to give everybody a minute to kind of just kind of tell us where you landed with this. We can start with the commission and coach, and then
Oh, we're starting with me. Contrary to my song, I might be going back and forth. So I think the reality of, for me, I'll say it's heavily nuanced. I still have a stance, but it's heavily nuanced. I think a couple things that are worth me mentioning, at least things that are circling for me, is kind of just the role of activism and civic duty, right? Like that's one. Another one is like individual, um you know individual versus community, right? Like where does the onus rely, or like what's the right balance, right? Individual like liberties versus communal, and kind of where that sits. And then I think just in general, just the broader landscape, specifically within America, as it relates to race relations and how historically things have been actioned on, and especially when you look at our current dynamic that is ever changing literally every single day. Speaking of South Carolina, was able to kind of withhold from the recent gerrymandering, but we've seen other states not go that way. So like it's really like rife and very timely. And then I think the other component of it that kind of infuses all this is the role that sports has had, not only globally but specifically within the United States as it relates to power dynamics and things like that. So with all that in mind, I will say I think when I first saw this kind of floating around, and it was specific on the SEC, that's what the first time I saw it was about boycotting SEC. And I think what I was really challenged by was that, one, um, in America, it is not only Southern states that are currently experiencing what I would call, well, I wouldn't call it, but the revert back to Jim Crow era. And so for me, it didn't really quite make sense. Like, why is it only SEC? And then also there's the ACC operates in Southern states too, Sunbelt or whatever their new Horizon. Like, there's a plethora of ones. So maybe over time it evolved to just not be the SEC. But I felt like that was very limited in its scope. The other component of it that, therefore, so not only like the SEC, the ACC, like who else has ties to Southern schools? But then why is it only college? Like there are professional sports that operate in these Southern states. So why are we putting the onus on college students? Now, as someone who experienced SEC, specifically football, I do understand that that has heavy ties, right? But to me, why are we asking college kids or students or, young adults to solely make this sacrifice? Why isn't it more expansive to the Atlanta Falcons, right? Why isn't it more expansive to fill in the blank, the other, professional entities that exist throughout the South East? And then I think like that was my initial reaction. It just didn't feel comprehensive enough. It felt very limited. Now I do understand the value of, again, economic impact when you look at, the bus boycotts, things like that. Part of the reason why a lot of that stuff made an impact is because it was financially impacting these institutions. So I understand the hit them where it hurts, where there's impact, it's noticeable. But what didn't feel holistic to me or comprehensive is, okay, so then what? Right? Like the I didn't feel like what I was hearing was a lot of like, what is the plan? Like, what is the source of change? Because not going to the SEC schools and playing football, when meanwhile you have redlining and districting and all these things impacting the day-to-day lives, furthermore, when you look at the distribution of the United States, where the majority of African Americans live, it is still primarily in the South. So now you're also impacting the same individual. So it just felt like it felt very off the cuff to me. It didn't feel strategic enough and it didn't feel comprehensive enough. That's really where I had a lot of the issues, on top of kind of the other stuff I mentioned. But I'll stop there so we can bring others into the conversation and we'll let it flow. And I have a lot of other stuff, but those are the main ones for me when I heard it, that my reaction was, it didn't feel comprehensive. It didn't feel strategic enough for me.
All right. Before we go to Coach Coleman, politically, was there any concepts or anything you wanted to explain in from what Commish said, or anything you felt like you needed to explain? You want to break down?
Yeah, just a little bit. This whole thing came about, because of the voting right conflict, of course, the gutting of that bill, the redistricting battle, and then the three characters that came in, the CBC, because this also involved the SCORE Act, with the NAACP. I'm sure they're all, kind of connected. But it's just the timing that matters, because you got legislation, activism, and public pressure usually operating independently, now all kind of conversion. So when you have issues like the voting rights disputes, redistricting conflicts, and athletic legislation happening simultaneously, it is a lot of confusion about, why the SEC is being targeted and why it's not something that, is called for nationwide. I understand the concept of the Deep South and all that, but I guess some of the CBC members kind of come from those particular areas. And so that's probably why all of this is kind of converging at the same time. But that kind of sets the stage for, what we'll go, into as far as a further discussion.
Okay. All right. Coach Coleman, where did you land on this? How did you
land on this? When it comes to economics and the Black and brown athlete and racism, discrimination, and equity, equality, nothing is ever fair time, and nothing is ever, first and foremost. I think the thing that we have to acknowledge is that the system started in broken. It was something that where at one upon a time, these Black and brown athletes, before we got to pay, they were entertainment for the wealth, and more than likely they were indentured servants or slaves. And so just the origin, I'm not getting into the frustration of it. So now when we get to now in 2025, 2026, and we get to NIL, we were trying to establish a better system, get away from that model. And so now you have what you would say the ideologies of from the Civil War, the Confederate experience, and the public policy agendas that we have right in the world. It does impact the community. So we could say we could be better, but more proactive. But at times, when you look from history, there have been Black and brown, and then we can't even talk about the disparity that women's sports still have, and still from that, right? So that's kind of all this ball you have going on when you have so much good progress. This was in the works politically, and if the people don't respond, where are we going to be? And so there's so many, I think, moving parts in there that can be frustrating, and as Commish say, that people have to make as individuals, and then what is best for the community on the local, state, and federal level. So it's a fight where you got to start your local, your state, and federal. And when I say fight, where you're pushing back and forcing hands into a negotiation, and it's not pretty, it's not beautiful, but there's so many times that people before me, I wouldn't be coaching if those Black athletes then didn't take a stand for something. I wouldn't had a coaching career if I've had the past 20 something years of my life if there wasn't those Black athletes that they didn't decide to be shut up and play. They made a stand with their actions, even though they could have just took whatever money, but it was a bigger picture to make sure you see what we see today, the NILs and the opportunity for our Black and brown men and women to have a possibility of generational wealth. So I think there's a lot there, not just about the app. To me, I'm torn because we're on the horizon of something good, but now there's some issues. If you don't address it, will you even have a season years to come? That's how I look. That's how, from my lens, I look at it. And I'll pause at that point right there.
Lil, anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'll just briefly say that when I initially came across this, and I believe it was you that alerted me to it, I was, really kind of surprised. And my surprise was that, okay, you want the athletes, the NIL particular athletes, to join a civil rights fight. And I'm not saying that, it shouldn't happen, but I'm like, it doesn't seem organized, like Commish was saying. It doesn't seem organized, and I don't really see how effective it could be, And then where were you all? Where was your participation when NIL came out as an economic engine, and you put no infrastructure in place? Because the political, economic infrastructure should have been put in place the minute the Supreme Court decision came down with NIL, but your focus was on other matters. Now all of a sudden you got something you can so-called use, and then you want to, get these NIL athletes. I bet 90% of them that are not as politically educated as they need to be, so that was all it is. This is what you needed, so that when you call for something like this, then it makes sense. You have a strategy in place that could be more effective than what I see is kind of a piecemeal, going on right now. So I don't, I've tried to look into it, try to research what they're attempting to do, and it still doesn't look like there's been a lot of thought. Then the Urban League, you're supposed to be the economic arm of the civil rights institution. Where was your, where was your participation? Haven't heard anything, on a large scale. Why weren't you gathering our professional, our lawyers, our accountants, investors, and such? Why haven't they been, put together to form an infrastructure? These NIL athletes' allegiance is kind of all over the place. So I how they're gonna try to rein this in to go after these, political goals, and I really don't see. And then another thing I want to bring up quickly before we get any deeper, the SCORE Act. How dare you, CBC, support a mechanism that was going to reestablish institutional control over these athletes, and now you got the audacity, because your seat's at stake, to come in and ask these athletes to to boycott, to basically save your district or your seat. But you killed the bill coming to the floor, but you wasn't going to kill it before this redistricting happened. Very disappointed with that, because that seems individualized, on their behalf. So we got a lot of moving parts here, and we just don't have a cohesive political agenda, Black political agenda to move us anywhere. And the opposition is trying to move us back towards disenfranchisement, back to a new Jim Crow era. Something I thought I would outlive my lifetime, but it's political.
It's like Jim Crow 2.0.
Yes. Well, 3.0 was mass incarceration was the 2.0.
Was 2.0.
2.0,
exactly.
yeah. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. Come in, she was going to say something.
Yeah, political Leo, can you maybe elaborate what your issue with the Black Caucus was as it relates to the SCORE Act?
Yeah, I've been looking into the SCORE Act because I first came across it during the volleyball championships, the NCAA volleyball championships. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
go, vote for the squad. Call your legislator and get him to vote for the squad. And then I went and checked it out, saw who was involved in it. Of course, the usual suspects, to include Nick Saban. And I knew it was some garbage right then and there. So they have an organization called CLAPS that are looking at the pros and cons of it. And this always happens. You have a Supreme Court decision, and when the institution can't get their way or maintain control, they hurry up and run to the legislation. That's what the president of the NCAA did. And then they want to start, well, let's get some new legislation, to reestablish control, kind of like, okay, we want to do sharecropping still, but we're going to give you a few peanuts with it. So they back to that game again. So yeah, I was shocked when the CBC came out. We're not supporting the SCORE Act, and I said, "Oh, okay, that must have been on the merits of the cons of the pro." And I couldn't find out. No, it's because of the redistricting and possibility that they're gonna lose their seats. Now I'm furious because that's to find out you were for that institutional control of our athletes, and then for you to turn around and get it off the floor of Congress only because of this Supreme Court decision, that's nefarious to me.
Okay, got it. I just was clarifying because there's been some chatter that they opposed it because of the limitations, but from what you saw, it was actually more quid pro quo because of that. Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna be honest, y'all. I got a panel up here because y'all know when I get going, it's it's up, and I say what I say, and I got people here to keep the checks and balances, right? Keep me honest. But I'm gonna start with the NAACP's out of bounds campaign, and this is what they calling this out of bounds campaign, and it's supposed to it's no representation, no recruitment, no revenue. The argument is if states are weakening Black voting power through redistricting and attacks on representation, and those same states should not keep benefiting from Black athletes like nothing is happening. And I think we all agree that part's not hard to understand, right? But we talked about it. They win the games, they fill the stadiums, they TV deals, all the stuff that's going on. Everybody understands their value, but when the communities these athletes are coming from ask for fair political representation, everybody wants the athlete to just focus on school, focus on the game, focus on the season, and don't worry about politics. It's like a contradiction, right? But now all of a sudden, they want these kids to become the face of the movement. And I like what Kamish said about we're not talking about the pro athletes. And before we get to the athletes, why are we not talking about the billionaires that got businesses in these states? These companies that's coming into the southern states. I remember in the late 90s when I was coming out of college, all them international and other companies coming down to the South, getting them great tax cuts and stuff to bring they plants and businesses and jobs, and not Mercedes ran their ass down in Alabama. All kind of people came in town. Toyota came in town, right? A lot of people came in town. We're not boycotting none of that. We're not telling them to cut no money. We're not telling them to help back, because who's donating? Who's doing the most donating in these type of campaigns and shit? Is it these young people? Or is it the people that's making the money off their back anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Is a boycott of schools by Black athletes and recruits the strongest solution? Or is it the most emotionally satisfying solution? I don't think it's neither one of them. And I like what Kamish said, because it wasn't enough. A solution has to do more to make a statement. And I think what what made it incomplete, the plan incomplete, was it didn't have a plan to protect the people being asked to take the risk.
Mm-hmm.
So when I don't go, when I boycott these schools, where I'm going? What kind of scholarships you offering? What kind of NIL opportunities are you offering? What kind of revenue sharing opportunities are you offering? What kind of opportunities for me to still be able to grow my platform, build my brand, perform at the highest level? We always quick to tell somebody where not to go. Okay, so we're not going over there, but what we gonna do?
No solution.
Right? They said don't go shop. They said don't go shop nowhere. Okay, so then where I get my stuff? Well, you can grow it. Okay, well that's gonna take a minute. What I do till then? The solution has to create a path. It has to have a plan for what happens at after the press conference, after the headline, after the debate show, after the social media moment, and that's where the boycott went real incomplete. So I cut somebody off. What you was gonna say?
No, I thought that it was a rhetorical question you were sharing. I just believe sometimes what happens, and I wrestle with this as an individual in the generation I come from. I feel sometimes some, what do you call it? I would say communal guilt, that maybe, did I do anything to contribute to accountability checks individually within my immediate civic duty, right? But and then at the same time trying to make a living, and the thought that there was advancements made. But then when you have an organization that's more than one person, where there's enough proactivity, where were they? Why weren't they putting pressure on this policy, holding accountable and rallying around? So that's the part we have to look at too.
This where you gonna get me in trouble. See, this where you gonna get me in trouble. We can argue about it in the chat. I'm not an NAACP person. I'm not an NAACP person. I'm not card carrying. I ain't a member. I've been through an NAACP since Quessy. If you don't know Quessy, and it wasn't because of Quessy, that was just a time frame that I was like, this organization seems to be more of
image awards,
more about look than it is about action. And at this point, we need to be about action. We got too many opportunities right now that we need to be active on, that we can't be getting along for the get along and quid pro quo in one hand, watch the another hand. But we don't got time for all that shit. We don't have time for that. When you look around here, they are wiping out Black excellence at every opportunity they get. They are taking away opportunity for Black and brown people, women, men, children, every opportunity that they get. So when we go to asking the recruit to turn down Don Staley in South Carolina and Texas and LSU and Tennessee and Florida, and so many people that's asking them to turn them down got degrees hanging up on their wall from these schools. I ain't gonna call no names, but if you look at them, you'll see Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, any other major program. Then we need to know what the alternative structure is that's already in place. Are the NIL funds ready? Are the HBCU resources ready? Are there legal protections ready? Are there transfer protections ready? Are there donors ready to move the money? Where's the donors? Where's the money? Where's the infrastructure? Are there sponsors ready to back athletes who take that stand? Are we just asking the athlete to be brave? Just going out there. Somebody got your back. So I guess for the panel, for you all, what is the difference between supporting the cause and supporting the specific tactic? What's the difference for y'all there?
I mean, I think this is where, when I started, I was saying that balance between individual and communal. Like, I think it's tough. I just think it is. I think it's really hard to say. I think everything's going to have to come at some form of personal sacrifice, right? And so the question becomes, either as a community, how do we create the infrastructure or the insulation to allow that to be easier, or, whatever word you want to use. But I do think it's difficult, because if we were to take the same, which your question is a fine question, but if we were to take the same question for the Montgomery bus boycotts, well, if they all sat there and said, what's in it for me, they wouldn't have walked. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes there is no like cushy solution. So I want to keep that in mind. But I do think in this instance, everybody needs to sacrifice. It can't just be like me looking at someone else and being like, you should sacrifice. I feel like that's faulty.
Oh
I
yeah, it's
think,
definitely some uncomfort for everybody. I agree.
yeah, like everybody needs to be a little bit uncomfortable to push the envelope. But where I felt like this specifically felt short was if we're not asking pro athletes to do it, if we're not asking, like you said, the business people to do it, if we're not reinvesting a dollar in our own communities, then it falls short. So back to your question around, well, I forget I changed it
Maybe I
to,
should change the question. Maybe I should
okay.
change the
I
question.
think I just changed it. So go ahead.
I'm gonna totally change the question. Here's the question that I'm asking about this boycott. Are people confusing symbolic resistance with sustainable strategy?
I don't.
I mean,
Well, go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. I think that was a great question. Where Commissioner saying, I think we're in the time. We're in the time where you have to have some action, and then you have to have a plan, a strategic plan. And so if you're asking, this is my thing. If your organization asking this, then you have to develop some type of feasible alternative. It's not going to be the best, but we need to have a bigger picture here because you're asking them to sacrifice something that they work for, that they put the time in. But at the same time, this is this issue, a political issue, right? Voting rights acts and economical fairness, and we can go down the list, right? Equality, equity, right? We can go down the list what this is implicating, and right, and we're not just, it's not about just facing gutting of voting rights acts. We're also talking about, you have some politicians trying to question the 14th Amendment and black and brown America being citizens. So that's the segue. So in this, you do have to have um, a strategic approach to this, but also, do you provide an alternative when you're asking of a sacrifice? How do we provide an alternative? May not be the greatest, but we will reach out to whatever HBCUs and schools, and as go back to the word we're using, communal or community effort. So there is a success, and so the efforts of our athletes now are basically professional athletes, right, at the college level. That's what they are because it's NIL, right, and they're getting paid for it. So there are semi-professional athletes, making sure that they're still respected for the body of work, right, and not just everything is wiped out. And it's not easy, but it takes a lot of effort and planning. I think some thought to be into that. So yeah, just don't get the black glove, raise your fist up. We're in a time where you need still got to acknowledge what's going on at the same time. Our young men and young women, they still need to move on with their life. And how do we do that? How do we do that within addressing what is the injustice, that's going on? So what does that look like? And so it does not seem like um, it's a plan has enough pages to it at this point.
Yeah, and just to jump in, I believe that sports, may very well become our next major civil rights battleground. I firmly believe that it will be because of the way sports sits at the intersection of labor, economics, race, media, politics, and then how we deal with institutional power. But as the other panelists were saying, you you have got to be more cognizant of the situation, that you just can't throw out things without some organization, strategy, and tactics behind it. And you know, we don't have the involvement of everybody that should be involved. We can't simply, depend on one civil rights organization who normally fights through the courts. That's what they have done historically. But if you don't have the other organizations, especially somebody like the Urban League, in other words, we're not bringing all the power to bear, and then you just
Can I
throwing the
ask a
most.
question?
Somebody said something.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say, can I
Okay.
ask a question? Because I don't disagree with your statement, but it has me thinking. Who are our leaders?
Ha! I can't taste the soup. Yeah, I taste the soup. I can't. Who's the leader?
No spoon.
We out here looking like LSU. It ain't a leader on the floor, and we got Kim Caldwell as a coach. She got plan A, and that is it. Boycott, and then do what?
And I think that's actually part of the conversation that needs to be had. those of us who were blessed that civil rights books weren't banned when we were growing up and actually sought out some of the stuff, whether it was in school or not always in school, but you had to go a level further to get the education and the knowledge. It does feel like in these times, right? Like, who is our leader? And not to say it was always one person, right? Because it
Right, right.
wasn't one singular person, but it doesn't feel like we have the luminaries sitting in the positions where historically we had them sitting. And it's why these organizations were necessary. Like, unlike Auntie, I still do believe that the NCAA has a place for us. Whether or not I think they're doing a good job is a separate conversation.
The
But
NCAA or the NAACP?
sorry,
How about
NAACP.
it? Oh, yeah.
We know what you mean. We know what you mean.
Thank
It was a
you.
lot of
No,
it was a
good,
lot of
good
it was a lot of
clarification.
ends. It was a lot of ends and C's and AAs out there. I was just
See?
checking. You know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
just double checking.
Thank you. A good time to clarify that. But well, actually, both of them are problematic. But you know the one I was talking about. I meant.
Right.
And I do think that's part of our challenge right now, because the strategic thinkers, I think, are either really embedded in, not to say there's not value here, but like the schools system, right? Where they're individually impacting the lives of like 20 students, 30 students, still important. Or it feels like they're sitting at Google writing code, and it's just like, we don't have, like, where are the people? Like, where are the leaders for us right now? It feels like there's a leadership void. And I think that's what we're seeing with some of this stuff. I think we have maybe people embedded in a variety of places, but they're not coming together. And I think that's actually, I've always been really interested in this. Like, I think this is, while the dream is that we all are living equal amongst each other, in some ways it also makes people more disconnected, i.e.,
Oh, great point.
look at Kevin Hart. I'm not saying Kevin Hart was an activist, but look at how things have transpired, right? I do think the more people are sitting on the hillside in their castles, they're more disconnected from the everyday experience, and therefore are, because they've assimilated, they don't
Mhm.
feel it, or they don't see it, or they don't stay as connected. And it
It hasn't come
takes,
for them yet.
yeah, or it takes like a George Floyd during COVID to like wake people up and shake the room. But it does, or current dynamics, which it doesn't seem like enough people are woke. I know like woke has taken on new terminology because of the people who took it on, but like, by definition, people are not really woke to what's going on and seeing the patterns. So I feel like kind of the confluence of all this is what is creating what original, like, political Leo, your point around the urban league was established for the economic. You have like the ACLUs, that you have all these entities that during civil times, like civil rights times, were so critical. You had the Black Panthers, and then you had like the peaceful resistance, which everybody forgets over time. It became less peaceful. But, like,
But
again, it takes.
I also think. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I think I'm just saying, like, when you look at history, you study history, you like try to apply that to our current times, and I think there are things there, but I think that's part of what is the disconnect that I'm experiencing, right? Is, as people are climbing socially or socioeconomically, the same things aren't making the linkages um, for why we're in the situation we're in. When you even look
Mm.
at the voter turnout, um, why are so many people disenfranchised from voting? And then we get in these situations, and then people want to be mad. Well, did you vote? Did you go? Did you vote? Did you take the one day it took to go to the polls to vote? No.
Souls to the polls.
You know what I mean? And it's like, we can't simultaneously then be mad as a collective, right? I'm saying as a collective, we as a collective then can't be mad when we're not taking literally the rights people died for to show up and vote, not even just the presidential, but your midterms, your local municipalities that are enacting all these things that bubble up into the overall federal. And so for me, that's where I feel like the NAACP is falling short with this boycott, because the boycott needs to be tied to exactly what Political Lil said, which historically have been fought in court.
Well,
Which is
I
no
So
think
faith, which is
my
no
issue,
faith in that as it
my, my
currently constructed. I
but
think
my
that's a
issue with the
challenge to the.
NAACP though
I
is
don't disagree.
where y'all been up for everything else that's going on. Y'all
I
just said that voting rights is gutted. Food skyrocket, like big beautiful bill. Where y'all showed up for this? That's my
Okay,
my issue with them.
I
That's my
understand
issue
that.
with them. They pick and choose the stuff that they show up for, and the stuff that they show up for. And not that it doesn't matter, but you showed up now. Man, we
So
out here with all 10 fingers, all 10 toes, and all the holes in the goddamn dam, and you showed up now.
I don't disagree with your if that is your point, I understand that. My not counter, but my question therefore is, which I think still ties back to the comment I made earlier, who has shown up?
So here's why I think nobody's shown up. And this
I
is what I was
agree.
gonna say.
I think that's the problem.
But here's why. Because I think so. Everybody thought the civil rights times was over. Everybody thought we was free. We made it, and civil rights times ain't the fuck over.
Yeah,
It's still
an
civil rights times right
it's
now.
Every day.
So
every day.
it's every day. That's our life. So when people are like, well, you know, back in civil rights time, when? Yesterday?
Yeah.
Civil rights times right now.
Right.
So that's the piece. That's the piece that I think everybody missed. They was like, people woke up and like, if we shall overcome. They thought we overcame. No, we didn't overcome.
Right, because people were plotting.
We didn't finish the thing. As Commish said, we didn't do the thing. We have not done the thing. We haven't finished it. So, until we own the fact that we didn't finish it, we're going to be in this situation. I remember when assimilate was like a bad word. Like, you didn't assimilate. You didn't say that word. I mean, that was like a goddamn way of life.
Well, and I think that's why I called it out, because I think it's a human condition, to be fair.
Okay.
But I do think, to your point, I think as a collective, the ball has been dropped, right?
Absolutely.
And I guess that's where I'm kind of like, yes, the NAACP has dropped, but I can't say like, I mean, when's the last time anybody, you know what I mean? So it's like, as a collective, like where the luminaries, where the thought leaders are, as a collective, I think we have dropped the ball as a Black community. I'm saying that, whether or not you disagree. I'm saying that, and I can't just solely put that on the NAACP. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, in this purpose, as far as the trying to be the spokesperson is NAACP, but I'm going to go with you. It is what we call grassroots, just like how in business and how in sports teams are successful from the grassroots. And so, we're here now because we, and I will include myself. We didn't do enough work prior to.
We didn't do the thing. Yeah, we didn't. As people have been climbing socially, as people get their money with NIL and stuff like that, as they continue to go to programs and schools that have been less favorable, have had issues. Like, people are still choosing to do the thing over and over again, which feeds into the institutions that are also robbing people of their rights. So, like, again, this is like the individual versus communal conversation. Like, cool, you just became a millionaire, but they just screwed over your community in the process. So don't you have, like, we as a collective, like, doesn't that individual have a little bit of ownership too that they have to take?
I mean, and we're talking about a government.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to the system, thing you have to realize that the professional sports and the college sports are tied into the social political dynamic
100%
of America, because it's because it's the basis of the economics, and you have to look at some of the factors that from year to year, from either whether it's college sports, just college sports alone is like what, as a collective, almost like what and it has increased since now, but it's almost like 15 billion. for America. So the crux between college and professional sports, you're talking about 15, 16, probably about 20 billion now. I'm just going from some little older statistics here. And so when you look at that, some of the crux of your economical flow in the system that is broken is still based on a party that does not have an interest for there to be equity and equality. And so when I say party, meaning as persons, not so much their political party, mean as in where they're standing, their ideology, and what they believe should be done, right? And so when you look at that, we know that college sports is a billion dollar industry compared to, professional sports is there too, but I mean, in the South, in the South, Southeast, and those states, some of the states that is their professional thing. And so when I say that, we have to look at the economical structure for what it is and still is in certain, demographics and geographical locations. And so, um, but in America, I mean, sports plays a big part in the wealth that you see, and then we see the technology that's on the rise too with AI and things of nature. But we're talking about sports. Sports plays a big role. I think people don't want to acknowledge it. They try to kicks and giggles with it, but it is. It's a very big, and it's still off the what? Still depending off the what? Success of black and brown talent.
Mhm.
Yep, I agree. I just think that's why I started by saying there's, the pockets that I mentioned, like all these things are interplaying at the same time. Um, I think the question becomes, like, again, where I go back to is, so what? Like, what do we do? I agree. Black and brown talent, that's the core, especially in the Southeast, of at least the major sports. Um, well, yeah. So now what? Okay, we're gonna boycott. Okay, what? Like, what is the solution, and what are we gonna do about it to, like, get us to the point? Also, like, as a community, like, we have to decide, like, there's alarm bells going off, like, we need to do something, right? um and then I think the question becomes, is like, what is everybody individually going to sacrifice, or what is everybody individually going to take action on? Because maybe it doesn't always have to be framed, zero sum game. But that's where I feel like this falls short. Like, where's the bigger picture in all of it? um
So should
yeah,
the burden be shifted from the recruits to the donors and the institutions first?
it should be, but how are you going to put the burden on them? Because they just asked Lane Kiffin, fun fact, they just asked Lane Kiffin today, how he felt about the boycott. And you know what Lane said?
Oh, what did he say? Please enlighten me. I can't wait.
Yes, he said, I have no comment on that, but you can refer to, isn't the LSU's AD black? Yeah. He said you can refer to that man. That was his answer. But yet he made sure to tell us not more than a week or two ago how racist Oxford, Mississippi was.
Mm-hmm.
But he has a no comment on this. Okay, interesting. You know what I
Because
mean?
it's
Like,
yeah, right.
I find that fascinating, that you were and then you said, then you're the same one that had "Make Baton Rouge Great Again" hats, but
Wow.
somehow
Wow.
you don't have you now that you've left Oxford, Mississippi, all of a sudden have something to say about Oxford, Mississippi, even though when you were there you reemphasized that it didn't have any racial issues. Now that you're at LSU, you want to point the finger at Oxford, Mississippi, but when they ask you questions about the same people you're trying to recruit, you don't have anything to say about the boycott. So I'm with you. The onus should be on them. But what we have come to find out in this country, and even at the highest levels of this country, people get to wash their hands of situations, and there's no public doubling down, or we're not willing to uh, hold people accountable. Checks and balances get murky when you're able to pay and you rub arms and shoulders with certain individuals. So I would love that to be who we hold the fire to. um Again, if we are willing as people to economically ensure that we hit them in their pockets. people are still shopping at Target, and we couldn't even really come up with a holistic situation where I would actually argue Walmart is worse than Target. So why were we even like, you know what I mean? So like, I just find that if we're going to ask for something, where's the follow through in like a comprehensive way?
Well, yeah, I mean that's a great question because I was looking at the other side of this, is that they're not just talking about recruits. They're also asking current athletes. So it's not like the transfer portal is open. So what are they supposed to do? Just walk away from school this year? Like it's not a very well thought out plan. These young people have a team. They got coaches. They got a degree plan. They got a community. They got NIL deals, housing, friendships, roles in their system. I don't know. So it's like, well, they should just transfer. Even with the transfer portal, it can be disruptive anyway. So I mean,
these institutions that are not in the South are not without culpability either. So that like that's not the solution. It's not like I can come up with countless stories we've heard over this past year on institutions in the quote unquote North that have had racial issues. Like, first thing, we need to recognize that racism is not just concentrated. It's not just concentrated to Southern states.
Right, no,
it's an American issue. Like, and
Yeah,
then we can start there.
if you go to Massachusetts, like, well, I'm from New Jersey, it's like I can tell you some stories, but
not a fan.
Right, exactly. But what I wanted to share briefly, thank you for allowing me a moment, was that in a term, I'm gonna use a sports term. I mean, really, what you have to do is what when you're competing against a component, you build a scouting report. We got to do a better job at a scouting report. And what scouting report is, know the strengths and the tensions of the opponent. Why are they coming after you? How they're going to try to attack you, and then the counter attack. And so that requires for you to have an elaborate plan, not just as Auntie says. And so, so even in politics, you can use some sports analogy. You have to have a better scouting report, or else you just playing pickup at the part. Okay, you got them, we got them, and then let's figure it out as the game goes on. And so we're in a time where you have all these resources and the technology. Use it to build a better scouting report and to build a better plan. So it will pull the people. I think you pull people together more convincingly when it looks like you have a plan with purpose and with not just with an end game, but it has phases to it. This is what we're trying to get accomplished at this point right now, this conjunction. And then when we get to your state legislator, so where you're kind of spelling out your scouting report and what we're trying to address and what we do there. So,
well, let me say this. Let me say this. And what Coleman is saying, politics is an ongoing game. It's not, a period type of thing. And he's right. Ever since the 1960s, after we got the voting right bill and the housing bill, and this and that, there was no game plan continuing forward that collectively involved everybody. That was not even what Malcolm X called for, which was a political education of our community. I'm saying that these structures, these organizations, they didn't continue what should have been continued, because you have to know that once you achieve something, the other side is just not going to sit back and let you enjoy the fruits of that. There's always going to be, a counterfact. They went with a Southern strategy. They kept their thing, moving into the future. But I don't think we did. And then to come to this point and ask these children, I know why they went after these athletes, because of the visibility, not to mention what could explode economically. But, to throw something out there like that, that quickly, and then, to expect them to just have an immediate reaction when it kind of shows me they don't really know how NIL working either. To ask these kids these kids are tied up in all kind of legal situations, that could potentially, this is big. This could potentially ruin their lives, cut off family support, impact their future. And with us not having a fallback plan, with this organization that is doing the asking, not to have a comprehensive fallback plan. I mean, the Urban League puts out a State of Black America report every year. So you should have known what kind of trouble we was in, and plotting and planning and strategizing just should have occurred. I just think it looks so unorganized right now. I don't see how anything they're talking about is going to be effective going forward.
I want to bring women's basketball into the center of this conversation for a second. I think early conversation we talked football, men to SEC, and I know that they're all big money, but since it was specifically on the SEC, we know that the SEC is not just football. The SEC is South Carolina women's basketball. It's Texas is a national power. LSU, national attention around that program. Tennessee has their history. Vandy is building. The SEC is women's basketball ecosystem filled with the players, the coaches, the fans, the brands, and the stories that matter right now inside women's basketball. And the truth of the matter is that Black women athletes have been central to sports activism and still get treated like a footnote when the national debate starts. Period. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at the WNBA, and they've already shown and this is why it's interesting that they that the first thing was to boycott, because we saw what the WNBA was able to do when they organized their athlete voice, right? And what that can look like. We saw these players speak up about racial injustice. We saw they organize around Black women killed by police violence. We seen them challenge and change the damn ownership in Atlanta, right? We seen them get Warnock elected, right? We've seen them push the labor conversations forward, and they've shown what democracy can look like inside a sports ecosystem. So why didn't we lean more into that? Why was the first thing just walk away from it instead of unite and use the power of the network and the lines that we have there, right? So I feel like women's basketball has to be centered in this debate, and if it's not by accident. And I think that's part of the same pattern. Black women lead the work, carry the risk, shape the culture, and then get overlooked when the public conversation gets formal. And I don't think we can let that happen here. The other side, centering women's basketball doesn't mean demanding Black women athletes save the movement. That's not what I'm saying. It's not. I don't think that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm rejecting. But what we need here is for their voices to be included in what this looks like. And that's another issue that I take with the way that the boycott and stuff has kind of come up. We need voices from everywhere to be included, not exploited. So we want opinions respected, not pre-written. We want coaches engaged, not cornered, right? Dawn is a walking activist, right? Before anything else, she's an activist. And so you boycott her? How does that work? I don't know. We want families heard, not judged. We want humanity protected. But I think that we as a people don't owe the world endless sacrifice just because we're usually the most capable people in the room. When people say SEC sports, why do they automatically think football first and women's basketball later? And how do we make sure Black women athletes are heard without demanding that they carry this entire movement? Because it could also end up like that. That's my question to the family.
I mean, would you just if I just say misogynoir, is that sufficient, or you want something more? I think you've answered your own. You said some of the stuff I was gonna say, where even in the WNBA versus the MNBA, even when the women were they didn't lead to an official boycott, but there was some version of a boycott, right? A light version, if you will. How many men came out and said, seriously, and not just on a podcast, but truly, I support the WNBA players. I'm putting political reputational capital behind them. We didn't see one.
Mm-hmm.
Like in a meaningful way. There are a couple that said things here and there. Jared Jackson Jr., his mom is Terry, right? So like there's that. But I didn't see LeBron really come out in a meaningful way.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see Steph Curry come out in a meaningful way. Kevin Durant was probably the closest. But again, in a meaningful way, no. Was he open about it? Yeah. And Draymond on his podcast. But again, did you purposely platform women continuously on your podcast every week? Here's the update. Here's where they are. Here's what's going. No, they didn't. So I think if misogynoir is an indication of that, which is why I always say, you know, the people that are like, why are you guys talking about race? Why are you talking? Because it exists everywhere. We don't live in a society that's in a vacuum. Like this stuff seeps into even how the sport we consume is discussed. They constantly misspell Chelsea Gray's names on every single graphic because for whatever reason, it's not important for them to spell it correctly. So that's part of the issue. So if as a society, and even right, like you said, civil rights is ongoing, but when I say civil rights, people know what I'm talking about. In the 1960s, the
Mhm.
Black women that were strategizing a lot of the work, we don't know their names.
Mhm.
They're on the last page of a 100-page textbook. If that, they're a footnote. Every MLK, every there's an MLK Day. I don't, we've kind of put Coretta Scott King there, but in a very passive way. But there's countless others who have been part of the freedom movement all the way back to Sojourner. Like, the fact that like Harriet Tubman, like, you know what I mean? Like, but those are the same names we name over and over. But like, there's so many people who were part of the sacrifices, but we don't talk about them. So that alone kind of answers the question. And I think it's a good question. It's a thought-provoking question, but that's the answer. So until I think our counterparts are equally, and we might have talked about, I think Brittany and I were talking about this on Baseline. I forget what this conversation we were having, but until quite frankly, calling in the men in the Black community equally want to put women's rights and women's needs on the same level as theirs, we're consistently going to be behind the 8 ball, because what's happened historically is once the Black men get a piece of what they want, the Black women are stuck holding the bag. So we get the scraps if we do. So it's like, I think that's part of the challenge.
I see beads of sweat building up on Coach Coleman head. Go ahead.
Nah, he cool. But like, again, if we can't have these conversations, then we're not going to get anywhere. It's always the Black women are expected to sacrifice for the betterment of everyone. But then we're not asking our Black men counterparts to quote unquote sacrifice for the betterment of us. Right. And so as a collective, we need to think about it on both sides. Like, hey, there may not be something that directly benefits me, but I always love to, like, and we've had this conversation about the phrasing of girl dad, right? Well, everybody's a something mom or had a mom. Like, I'm a daughter of a mom. Like, but like somehow that doesn't mean the same thing. So like, again, I challenge the thinking to be, what are the things that both sides are sacrificing, right? We can't always expect the same way we have the conversation about race overall, that Black people always have to sacrifice. We have to ask the other people who are benefiting disproportionately to think about the instances in which others are taking a back seat. And then how do you call to them to the front, right? And so for me, that's always the challenge of getting people to look not only on those quote unquote socially above them, but those to the side and those below to lift as they climb. And so I think that is the challenge there. I don't have an answer other than we have a societal issue.
I think the other part of it though too is that we got all these people that act like they're allies. And they're down. They want to, as we would say, come to the
I hate it.
they're coming
I
to the
hate it.
cookout, right?
I hate it.
So if you are an ally, then you have to be like I think we have to call them out too. Like you can't come.
But they
But
come to the cookout, eat the food, and go home. Take
yeah,
pictures and go home.
exactly.
You're not cleaning up. You not prepping no food. You don't make no store. You don't make no store run when we out of ice. But you come to the cookout just so you can do your TikTok dances and leave. Like I hate it. I hate it because it's very exploitive. It's very take, and it's never give back. Which is why I don't invite people to the cookout. You got to earn. You got to work your way up.
Right. Right. Definitely. I think what frustrates me is that anytime you have any political, social severities and strains, and it only affects black and brown athletes. It doesn't affect your international players, so to speak. It because as far as where it's taking place and its intention and its intentional target, it's a intentional strategy. And that's I think the tough or challenging concept to swallow or reality to swallow. It's intentional. It's not haphazard. This is a intentional thing, and so, but on that, we move to black. I think my concern with women's sports is that all this that's going on now. My heart's concern is that all the work doesn't is not in vain, doesn't get lost if we don't put a strategy in place to preserve, to uphold the work that has been done. And you can take some bumps and bruises, but don't wash out the whole thing. If that makes sense, right? You're going to take some bump and bruises and taking a stand and coming against the challenges and sometimes the mechanism that wants to set back even women's sports, right? Because that sets back a backbone and a power and a spokes and spokespersons in the community reality of it. And I don't have much patience for black men that are in high places, and now is what I call they just take hush money. They just take hush money, and then they don't want to
Oh,
take a
like
risk.
Kevin Hart. Oh, sorry.
Right,
That's not
right.
what you
They
meant.
take
My bad.
yeah, they take hush money, and they don't want to take the risk of speaking up for what's right. And here's the thing: if it wasn't for black women, you wouldn't be where you're at in your career. And we can say Kevin Hart because let's do the statistics and see what's who the majority that bought his tickets, right? But that's another story. So really, right? And I value the organization and what black women do in the community that lifts up young black men for us to be leaders and for us to be esteemed. And so we have to start looking at that. Like you said, the word I like today is collectively and realistically. And a lot of black men wouldn't be there if they weren't not just the soldiers of the community, but if it wasn't black women supporting that and organizing that for us to be where we're at today. And I don't say that for smoke and mirrors. That's the reality of it, and that's where we are. And so we cannot ignore that. And just look at our phenomenal political black women leaders on all levels that make the difference and that encourage others to dream and to make a difference on all levels. And so that's just the reality of it. And so, I sometimes, I get disappointed. I think some our men go, but they say go awry. That's an old word, but lose your way. And here we are now. So I don't have any answers to that, but I just want to acknowledge that yes, that is a dilemma. I think that's a social and a community, a social political dilemma. If we need to move forward and have some effective strategies.
Mhm.
But I think it starts in our everyday lives, to your point. And as the soul man here, appreciate you saying that, like, well, on the panel. But like, what rooms are you in that it's like, hey, why don't we have a perspective, or why don't we bring in more XYZ? Like, why is it only men here? Like, we couldn't get a, like, you know what I mean? Or even, there's always the not joke, but that, like, especially in organizations, it's always like the woman gets the default role as secretary or cleans up after everybody. It's like, why don't you pick up your trash, take it with you, throw it in the bin on your way out? Like, the default role of the woman, like, why don't we question what that is? And so it starts in our everyday instance that then gets cascaded and amplified in the society we live in.
As fans, what can we do without punishing the players?
Support their
My word of
individual
the day
brand.
is, oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Coach.
No, I said first and foremost, support their individual brands outside of the bigger thing. That's the first thing I think you continue to show love. That and that's in today's time. To me, that's a what we call a local economy. When you support their brand, that's not always connected to the WNBA or to the brands that they have outside of that independent. Support that stuff. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say my word of the day was comprehensive. Apparently, I think this is where I agree. I agree exactly with what Coach Coleman said. You asked me what it was to support. I do think we need to be having these, like we're having right now, more holistic conversations about kind of just where we are as a society. Because I do think, like, again, back to the question of, I don't think it's as simple as like, hey, you're gonna always get paid your mill, and like as a fan, that's like holistically on me. I think when we're in a situation as dire as we are, and like I said earlier, I think we as a community, we as a country have dropped the ball. That everybody has to recognize that there's a role that they have to play. And again, I don't think it should solely be on the potential NIL athletes to solve our current issues, like societally.
Right.
I think it
Right.
should be a step, but I think there's other things we all need to do, and as a collective, we need to have a social contract of what that is. So I think there's ways to do it. I think it's spending money within our community, but then also the other side of it is, I would also like to see us uphold standards to these individuals, right? Like, to me, it's not just like, oh, I'm going to support your brand, and then you go do tomfoolery and you don't call out LeBron. You don't call out injustices. You're quiet when things happen. You know what I mean? I think we're allowed to call people out and hold kind of people who have the platform and the capability, um, which is my issue with Caitlin Clark. Like, you don't just get to shut up and dribble, right? Like, there's a social construct here, and you're benefiting from the people around you. That to just be quiet about it isn't fair either, right? I think there needs to be onus and responsibility that's put on all sides. And that would be my answer to the question, rather than just like singularly, how does someone stay whole in this process, when I don't think we as a country are in a place where everybody gets to have their cake and eat it too.
Well, I think that we can't boycott these athletes. You know, they're under a lot of pressure. It's a lot being asked of them, and so we have to continue to understand their position, whichever position they choose, and then not, turn around and boycott them because they didn't take a collective approach. Uh, on this particular matter. It's a very delicate situation. We need all hands on deck, not just NIL hands on deck. I agree with
Right.
Kamish that each of us has a responsibility, as far as activism and advocacy, and we have to do that in a way that's productive and not economically destructive. When we are already in an economic situation of near strangulation, ourselves. So that would be mine.
Question: does anybody know of a voting rights organization that we could donate to or fund? Yeah, is there a voting rights organization out there?
I mean, the one I'm going to name you don't like, so.
I mean, it's because they're like a bigger pack, right? And so I think on the
Yeah, it would
local
be like a
level, you have
super PAC.
right.
Yeah,
Like
I
the type
still
of
feel
dollar.
like the biggest, what would it call, like, accountability is still like the biggest thing. um I don't think it's a singular. We don't live in a singular solution world anymore. I guess that's kind of where I'm going. We just don't. I think it takes a multitude of things to make the impact that we want to have. Because that's just as the world gets more complex, that's just kind of is a result. And so, I mean, I would recommend whatever your local municipality is, starting there, because I mean, there are federal things that impact us, but I think your state wide impacts, like if you're able to make that happen, then that creates kind of a cascading effect that's a little bit different. And as we know, each state has different rules, regulations, etc. So like that has a sizable impact, especially on communities of color, specifically the Black community.
There are certainly other organizations, and I agree with Kamish. You know, each of us needs to start locally. You know, working with those organizations, seeing where we could, support, even if it's not monetarily. You know, you might can volunteer to get involved. The bottom line is we're in a political crisis, and you just gonna have to give up the politics. You know, I don't want to do politics. Politics controls every aspect of your life.
Politics is doing you. I don't know one place where gas is under $3 no more for shit. Like politics is doing you. How much are eggs these days? Whether or not you want to do it or not, it's doing you.
Yeah. So we got to become more politically educated, more activated. You know, in doing that, and it starts at the local level. You know, that's the right move is to start there. But we can't continue to sit on the sidelines. You know, these discussions I think are great because sports has always been political. You know, and it's one way to educate masses of people that may not think of sports as politics, tied into politics as it is. You know, so.
I see FM saying reparations now. Oh, go ahead, Coach. You was gonna say something?
Nah, it has to start with the discussion, and then you have to put, how we put it into action. And I'm just ditto everything. It's just, again, I think this should just bring to our awareness and bring to our attention that how important what we do, where we're at. It does trickle up when you put enough together. It does go up when you put together a plan, and it does, and because that's really what worked in the past. But the thing is also, with the change in time, sometimes you do have to find different methods, right? That speak to what you don't do the same play in sports. You don't do the same play that doesn't work, right? Or you got to find a different defense to stop teaming. So you got to find things that work and speak that language and speaks to these policies and address things. And so that's always my concern.
Well,
Right.
let me say this then, Coach. Well, the tape is out on the boycott thing. So get another
right.
The tape is out. The scout is out on the boycott. Okay, let's come up. The tape's out on that. You got to come up with a different plan. The tape,
right.
Yeah, the tape's out. Tape's out on the boycott. So come on.
That was an easy.
I don't know if the boycott when it's not done strategically that's like running the wildcat. If you know it's coming and it's not intentional, then it's a problem. But you can do the quarterback sneak on the 1 yard line with the fake. You know what I mean? Like it's not that the boycott works. The challenge is it wasn't done comprehensively and strategically. That's my issue. But a boycott can work. That's not a problem. Even the threat of a boycott, hence the WNBA agreements.
The scout is out. You better have some type of plan B or some kind of another wrinkle that you put into the boycott. No, the SEC boycott, if that's the only boycott going on. Okay. You say no to the SEC boycott if that's the only one going on. What boycott would you say yes to? What
I
does the
think you got to
boycott
do.
look
I
like
think you got
that
to
you
do it
say
in
yes to?
segment. I think you got to do it in segments, right? And go back to Mitch said, well, ACC is the big SEC, so it's not the boycott is how we do it and how we support the players that saying they're willing because not everyone's going to do it, but are you going to support those who are going to step up and say I'm going to take a stand right now? So the thing is, it's all about money too. So what is the financial alternative for those individuals that are willing to forego that for the long, for the end game? And so I don't have an answer to that, but I have to agree is how you do that, and just don't do the SEC because give me Big East, give me all Power Four because they got their issues too. Let's go Power
Mm-hmm.
Four period.
Every
They all got their
institution
issues.
operating the same way,
Yeah.
So you can't
So
single one person out.
Because the thing is, even when they're like, okay, so we're gonna boycott all of them and then go to where the HBCUs, them state schools, ain't they now?
we challenge with budget, right? I'm an HBCU alumni, product, and so
Mm-hmm.
there's just and we're
But
challenged
I'm
is
saying,
based on the systemic.
now, but now HBCUs are state schools now, correct?
Not all of them.
Not all of them. Yeah, not all of them. But they
And the
all
ones that are they're underfunded.
Are
state
you
and
thinking of the
federal
funding?
support.
Yeah, they all have
Yeah,
federal
funded.
funding that they rely upon, which is the current issue with the whole DE&I assault
So
and stuff like
so then
that.
we
That's
say we're
what,
gonna go from working at the schools where they redistricting to working at the schools where we getting the money where they just where they just writing executive orders to cancel us out every day.
Mm. Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's what we doing.
System-wide.
That's what we doing.
He's right. That's what we doing.
Okay, because I'm glad commission, keep me straight. Because federally funded. This is a federally funded school, so they writing executive orders every day to just take your rights away. So no, don't go over here because they redistricting, but come over here. So again, it's like y'all said.
redistricting sounds like so passive. I feel like that doesn't encompass what's
no.
Okay.
No.
I just want to make sure.
I'm not. What I'm saying is we're ready to boycott about redistricting, right? NAACP. It's not a small thing, but we're not doing anything about
gerrymandering.
But we're not doing anything about the executive orders that are being written on a daily basis to gut the rights that we've known my entire life.
Yeah,
we ain't doing nothing about that. But let's stop going to the colleges down here because of the redistricting and gerrymandering. And I'm not making that little, but it's like, are we picking the right fight?
What's the fight you want to see?
I'm not sure what it is, but I think we need to have a conversation about are we picking the right fight before we go to just boycotting stuff. Who's the leader? What is the fight? And what is it that we're actually looking to get first? Right? What is the most important thing that we need first? We need to have a meeting. See, everybody keep coming up with, well, we're going to boycott this. We go, okay, so, okay, all right. Well, okay. But was there something more important that we should have did?
Mm-hmm.
We need to get together and figure out what is our priorities.
We don't even have an agenda.
Exactly. What is our agenda? What's our list of demands? What is it that we really need as a community? Why are we getting ready to run and boycott the SEC?
Listen, these are good questions. I do think even the fact that shit, you couldn't get everybody to agree with civil rights. So like there's just gonna not everyone's gonna agree. I totally get that. That. I just think that it's a conversation that we need to have first. I agree, but I mean, what are we all gonna get on a Zoom? All the black people, you know what I mean? So it's like
but here's the thing. We need to stop acting like we fucking can't. You sit on a goddamn tweet, there's 1,000 kids downtown at 10 o'clock because we said so.
That's
Yeah.
true.
I'm not
That's
disagreeing with that.
I'm gonna stop. I'm
Team
gonna stop
takeover.
acting like I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna stop acting like we don't have the tools and the resources and the ability to be able to do whatever the fuck it is we want to do. Who is it that do the goddamn family reunion? The motherfuckers be down there on that goddamn boat every year, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Yes, yes, yes.
We used to be able to show. We used to be able to say, "Hey, we're gonna meet at this day at this time, and we're gonna march on Washington." And motherfuckers got in cars, they walked, they got on buses, they got rides, and they fucking got there. So y'all gonna quit acting like we can't figure it out. And they was doing that shit without no Twitter, without no fucking internet, without no none of that. They was doing that shit just through fucking flyers and the churches. So for us to be sitting, for us to be sitting around going, I don't know how we gonna do it. How did your granny do it? Didn't even have goddamn call waiting and call back to that bitch ring and make sure you make a connection. We sit around making too many excuses. Too many excuses.
That was tongue in cheek, and you didn't let me finish.
No. I don't mean that. I don't mean that at you. I mean that in general at the attitude that people have about.
Yes.
Well, what will we do? I don't know. How can we?
Yes.
That's
where I was
going.
Can't? That's where I was going. Is I feel like the conversations that I've heard, and while yes, I have some dismay with the call and things like that. I think the other part of it is like we can't not do something in the pursuit of perfection, because these are these are complicated issues that there's no manual of what the right answer is. And I think it's getting involved, whether or not you want to show up to NC, like find something to go do with people who are trying to solve it. That was kind of more my point.
Absolutely.
And I just feel like too many times people are like, oh, well, the system doesn't work for us. Okay, so we're just not going to vote. Like that's what I'm personally frustrated with. Is like, okay, yes, we know it's flawed, but like, are we going to do something about it? Or are you just going to be like, oh, well, woe is me? Like that, the option of doing nothing is not better either. So like,
nah. And what happened to attacking it from all sides? We need some people on the inside to infiltrate. We need some people outside who ain't fucking with that. We need some people. We need some people that's in the black doing all black doing dirty work. We need answers all around.
Right.
We all get together. We gonna all get together and meet, and we gonna share our information, and we gonna go back out. Well, this how they doing this, how we doing that. We gonna attack this way. We gonna attack this way. We don't get together and make no plan. I mean, we got to get our Shaka Zulu on, man. We got to get together and meet and have a plan. We coming this way from the east. We coming this way from the west, from the north, from the south. And it's not even about attacking anybody. It's about doing better for our fucking selves. Putting ourselves in a better position. We got too much money coming into our hands not to be owning shit out here.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what was the NAACP prep before they come out with this announcement, because I can bet that this I don't know if they was going to shock and all.
I didn't think the NAACP came up with this idea. That's not how it came through to me. I saw it before the NAACP co-signed on it. I don't know. It just looked like it was a random group of people, and it started creating kind of a little bit of a groundswell. Like that's how I saw it. That if someone
that's even worse. That's even worse for me then. The NAACP, you weren't even first. You see some noise and you was like, you know what, we're gonna get on that. That's my problem. Yeah.
Well, I've already articulated my stance on it, so I'm not gonna repeat.
Man. No, but it's conversations like this, and great minds like you all, that start turning the wheels and building traction and opening up people's minds to what we can do, what we should do. Maybe we should do something. At least we're having a conversation about it. You said NLC is co-opted, it's useless now. I don't know what that organization is. Make a new one then. You know, I don't know. I don't know. Call it the NNAACP, the new national. Yeah, I don't know what you want to call it. The N square A square CP, whatever you want to call it. There's some type of organization. There's some type of leadership. There's some type of communication, and it's not just about this. It's about everything within our community. it's about being able to pass on our culture. It's about being able to make sure that we're educated. It's about keeping us abreast of what's going on in the world, what's coming up, what we need to be on the lookout for, what opportunities can we take advantage of. So this conversation doesn't even probably begin to scratch the surface on on where the conversation could have gone, right? But a great place to start. A great place to start. As we continue to kind of watch how this thing plays out, I encourage everybody to go and check out the recorded video that Political Lil and I did on the topic. But keep your eyes open. Share information. When we be out here sharing all these viral moments, share that stuff too. Share that stuff too. Share and make sure you're sharing that stuff within your community and within your real network. You know, your network is your network.
I'm sure no one who came up with this idea is, well, let me not say that. Let me start over. In efforts of being more comprehensive, I wish in the future any conversation around boycotting related to NIL and stuff like that, they should probably call on the Don Staleys of the world to understand more, because I do think I don't think we would have arrived at it, but if Don had also come out and co-signed it, we would be having a very different conversation. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so the lack of comprehensiveness, maybe asking people who are involved, figuring out, like, I think there needs to be more community driven reasons for things than potentially egotistical or individualistic. Absolutely. Because this didn't feel fully fleshed out, even just on the just like marketing aspect and co-signing. Like if a Don had co-signed on this, there would be a lot different conversation. Unfortunately, there's not really many other Dons as far as like brand elite status. I was going to try to think from a coaching standpoint or in the collegiate ranks, that name rings out like that. So your option would have been literally to go to Don and have a conversation, or one of the options, and then maybe a couple other head coaches here and there. But the lack of comprehensiveness is really the issue. Again, it in of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing if it came with other things. Here's the solution instead. Here's the long-term vision. Here's what else we're doing. We're attacking the problem from a multitude of ways. We're asking pro athletes. We're asking all student athletes. We're asking da-da-da-da-da. Like, there should have been pillars to this that would have felt more comprehensive. Mm-hmm.
I think if we had just followed the original civil rights model, it have came out a lot better. They always had education before action. You know, even doing sit-ins, you know, this is what's going to happen. I mean, there was no preparation. It was just announced. It went viral. You know, now it seems like it's more confusion than a comprehensive way that we should be moving.
You sure right, Lil, because they taught you how to sit in, how to protect your head, how to prepare for the hoes to come at you, right? All the things. Yeah. It was a meeting. It was a discussion. It was, you probably gonna go to jail. When you go to jail, be prepared for this.
Here's who you should call. This is the, like, don't speak without a lawyer. Yep.
Yeah. These are the lawyers that we have on hand. This is the funding that we had to bail you out. This is the money because you ain't gonna be able to work after they throw you under the bus. So you're gonna still be able to pay your bills, right? All of these things.
You think about it. Have you had any athlete? I mean, you asking these NIL athletes, have you identified them, educated them, talked to them, asked them what they thought? You just singled them out. Do this. You know, things don't normally work like that. It's just
right.
These kids that signed NIL agreements, they got legally binding contracts. Y'all told them leave school, don't come back, figure out something else to do. What? The cash up deposit just hit, man. What? I done already spent part of
My
this
mama,
money. Now what
my
do I
mama
do?
bills need to be paid.
What?
Yeah, what am I do?
What is it that you want me to do at this point?
Yeah, I don't, it just wasn't well thought out. I don't think it's not coming off as something that was well thought out.
Not at all. Not at all.
So what are next steps? What are we asking people to do?
Well, I think one of the things we can do, as a sports body, is to continue these conversations, continue to put out information, and get people more inclined to understand the value of politics, and that we're just not going to get through this without politicking. Just like the other side, you can't come to a gunfight, with a pencil or with a hope and a prayer. You have to be prepared. I don't see the other side, these institutions and the other side, they don't do anything without involving politics. And we seem to think that it's not necessary when it absolutely is. Like this conversation tonight, it probably should be hundreds of thousands of people listening, because this is going to, because sports is a whole ecosystem. This is gonna affect people all the way down the line. This is a serious issue that's being taken as some kind of viral dance, and it's serious. Our lives in the next 5 years, as this empire unfolds, is going to be a difficulty, that we haven't seen in quite several centuries. And if we're not politically ready to attack our problems as a group of people, we're going to keep repeating the same cycle until we decide we have to attack these problems through political means. That's what power is. Politics is how power is distributed. And you can't get around it unless you just want to be powerless, in anything we're doing. And we got too much expertise not to be more organized, intentional, agenda driven, on point with what we're doing. We know what we should attack, but we don't seem to know how to attack it. You just can't skip over politics. Not possible. And I'm not saying that because I'm, political ill. I mean, it's just the truth. We have to stop skipping the politics. Stop thinking everything isn't political. Everything is political. It just is. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. We're at a point where but they say you stand for something or fall for anything. And just like we are serving our purpose to our community today of putting accurate information and thoughts and to encourage people to have a planned out assembly. So everyone plays a role. Not saying that's the only thing I would be doing. I'm always in my area. I'm always active. And my thing is be active in what you can. Don't think what you do every day it does help. It does contribute to the cause, but most importantly, um, again, we're at a point though. I feel that I have to get a little bit more on the front. This is for coach speaking personally. It's my time to be more on the front line because somebody did it for me. And what does that look like in 2026? And where we're at in these days and time. And so that's for me. What does that look like? For me, what does that look like in the community that that I reside in, and what does that look like on the state level? And so I believe when you contribute to something good on the state level, it does impact the federal. So let's have a plan. It's like a business. It's like when you're a small business owner. Start small, act fast, think big. That means you're always working, right? It's not about the size of the business. It means, all right, do you have a plan? And are we working on the plan, right? And so there's a lot at stake, like there's always been mentioned. I think, and then there's a lot on the line. I don't like that word stake. There could be a lot on the line if we allow. Watch this though. If we allow it to be, If we allow it to
Absolutely.
be. If we allow it to be. That's the other part. If we allow it to be. So that's where I'm at today. So that's where I have, and I hope everyone is reflective and pay attention to surroundings, check on people, and we're in a time where you got to be intentional in everything that you do more than ever. You got to be
Mhm.
intentional and be aware. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, my position is not complicated. It is layered. Like, I support the fight for voting rights, right? The call for institutional accountability is supported. Athletes having an agency. Um, HBCUs getting real investment. I support donors, sponsors, lawmakers, universities, conferences being forced to answer. Um, I do not support the athlete and the recruit on the front line of the boycott as the solution. And it's not because the issue's fake, as I think you can tell by the way we talked about it here, but because sports and politics aren't separate, right? Not because universities deserve protection. The solution can't begin by placing the heaviest burden on a young black athlete. That's just fucking backwards. The adults with power need to move first. Institutions need to answer first. Donors need to put money behind their values first. Sponsors need to be challenged first. Um, and lawmakers, you got to confront the lawmakers and hold universities and conferences accountable and stop the hype. And then if an athlete chooses, right, to use their power, their platform, that should definitely be their decision, and they should be supported, protected, funded, and respected, not demanded, not guilty, not used.
Mhm.
I think that's the line. If the movement requires black athletes to sacrifice, but doesn't require powerful adults to risk anything, then we have not built justice. We built another performance where black labor carries the weight. We ain't doing that shit. This system is exposing itself. I think so. The question is it's not about if voting rights matter, nothing like that, because we know that they do. The question isn't political. Will just told y'all sports and politics married at the hip. Black athletes have power. That's not the question. The question is why are we asking young people to use their power before the adults use theirs? That's the question that we need to think on tonight. Um, this is one of those conversations where the easy answer is it's not enough, and I want to be real clear as we close. We're not dismissing the fight. We're not dismissing history. We're not dismissing concern around voting rights, redistricting, representation, black political power. We're saying the solution has to be aimed at the people with the most power first. So don't ask young black athletes to carry with universities, lawmakers, conferences, donors, sponsors, business owners, other adults with authority refuse to carry themselves. We need to continue to support, protect, listen, but do not fucking use our athletes. Any any closing thoughts from the panel?
I mean, just get in the same whatever you passionate about right now. What's going on? Don't sit on the sidelines. Participate, participate. This is a point where fans can participate. You're not just a spectator, right? If you're a fan of the sport,
Mhm.
you can participate and getting involved in it, and according to how you see fit and to how much you're willing to put on the line in your life. Because for there to be progress, I do realize that I do lose something when I take a stand. I do. There's going to be something at risk that I lose. That's a part of the process.
Yeah, I think we should, focus on who's currently controlling these ownership structures and who's capturing the largest share of the
Right.
long term wealth that's being created. Those people need to be at the point of pressure, and not necessarily these athletes who are already navigating a little bit too much, without having a proper political education. They can't even make a informed decision if they're not, you know, informed, don't even understand the consequences of what their actions, might result in, not understanding the alternatives and not being sat down as a body, a collective body, and being asked their opinion. You know, you'd be surprised what a lot of them may know and how they may be able to be an advocate for what we're trying to do in, you know, reestablishing fair districting and, you know, making sure voting rights are not erased, you know, because you're gonna still be able to vote. You know, they got to get an ID, you got to do this and that and that, but you want your vote to count, and you want to make sure you have proper representation. You know, I haven't heard one response. From an NIL athlete, you know, who has a large platform, you know, even about the acts. And, you know, that should have been done long before you called out the boycott. You know, those things should have been in place. So we got to do a better job, you know, of establishing an agenda, being more purposeful, you know, in what we're doing, and then knowing when to ask. You know, and knowing that these young people gonna have to make a tremendous sacrifice, because this wasn't asked historically of no other athlete. Remember, the college athletes in the past, they ain't have NIL, you know, so asking them to, you know, raise sane and possibly risk a scholarship is a whole lot different than asking somebody to risk $3 or $4 million, you know, taking care of a whole family, you know. But yeah, I agree. It should have started at the top and trickled down. You know, the professional athletes should have been asked to be involved in this fight instead of just targeting, you know. But I know they was going, you know, it's a university and stuff. But like Commish was saying, there are also professional sports teams in those areas as well, and in those states, you know, also. So.
Commish, any final thoughts?
Apologies. I went to grab my phone and just completely shut down the thing. So if I repeat anything or I only caught the last bit of political wheel. I think everything that you had said before you asked us our thoughts, Auntie, I agreed with. And yeah, I think it's just like, yeah, how do we make this a broader thing and use sports as a tool, use you know, our labor as like workers and employees as a tool, and then how do we take our talents and our time towards the things that also matter, right? And so how do you get involved at local levels, whether that's educating, whether that's using your brain to help come up with solutions, keeping people informed, connections, I think are all the things that need to be done.
Well, I appreciate y'all pulling up and having this conversation with me. And before we get out of here, I have to do this real quick, fam. I want to make sure we support something important. The Black and Missing Foundation. I've been talking about it. The Hope Without Boundaries 5K run walk. It's coming up this Saturday. It's finally coming up this Saturday. National Harbor, Maryland. Kickoff is at 8 a.m. Races at 9 a.m. Listen, if you're not going there, you can still donate, spread the word, support. But if you're in the area, go register, go run, go walk. Spend that time. It's a movement. Help us find us and help bring our missing home. Register today and support the Miles of Hope campaign. I appreciate you all pulling up. This is a great conversation. We'll continue to watch this and hopefully get a chance to come back and have a more resolute conversation around, you know, how this thing moves forward. So hopefully we're moving to solutions. But appreciate y'all. And I'm going to get out of here. I'm back in just about 15 minutes with some hoops. We got hoops tonight, y'all. But until next time, y'all know what it is. Listen, it's never too little. It's never too little. It's never too little, right? It's never too little. Whatever your give back is, it's never too little if it's genuine, right? It's never too little. Don't be afraid to try to make a difference. Until next time, y'all know what it is. Stay tuned. Talk soon. Let's talk sports. Yeah, we out.